Welcome back, Honors Algebra 2. We're going to continue on with the study guide. So with the study guide, I'm breaking it up into kind of sections. So this is the section with using your special right triangles or your unit circle. Now, I will show you guys both how to do both methods. So whatever method you're choosing to use, follow along and just, follow along on that section. So if you don't have your unit circle and you're planning on using your unit circle, pause me here and grab your unit circle to start. Okay, so pause and grab it. Okay, so hopefully we are all prepared and ready to go for this part of the study guide. Okay, so we're going to start on 6. So it says 2 cosine pi over 3 plus sine 7 pi over 4. Okay, so first thing I like to do is just kind of think about, okay, where is pi over 3? And what is its reference angle? So first, pi over 3, that reference angle we know just by looking at the denominator is 60 degrees. And then I know my patterns. If it's a 1 on top, that means it's in quadrant 1. And we know quadrant 1 cosine is positive. Okay, so I'm going to draw my special right triangle with focusing on 60. So I have 1, rad 3, and 2. So cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So cosine of pi over 3 is positive 1/2. So we're going to go 2 and then 1/2 plus, and then we're going to deal with sine of 7 pi over 4. So 7 pi over 4, I know my reference angle just by looking at the denominator is 45 degrees. And then I know by my patterns that 7 pi over 4 is 1 less than 2 pi. So that is in quadrant 4. If you need to look at your unit circle, that's fine. If you need to convert it to degrees, that's fine. But I just know my pattern. So this is 1 less than 8 pi over 4. So it's in quadrant 4. In quadrant 4, all students take classes. Sign is negative. So sometimes I'll actually put the negative in my answer to start just because that helps me to remember. And then I draw my special right triangle. So 1, 1, and rad 2. Okay, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So 1 over rad 2, which we would rationalize the denominator to be rad 2 over 2. Okay, so now I'm looking ahead, and technically I could cancel these. But now that we've gotten both of our answers, I can put it together. And I noticed that, okay, I actually want to keep the 2 there because I'm going to be adding it to a fraction and I want to already have a common denominator. So it's going to be 2 over 2 plus a negative, so minus rad 2 over 2. Now that they have a common denominator, we can just write it as 1. So it would be 2 minus rad 2 over 2. And that is it. So that would be your final answer for number 6. Okay, let's turn the page and go to these. So we're going to go through 7 through 10, and then we'll be done with this portion of the video. Okay, so 10 pi over 3. So I start there. Oh, you know what? I realized I didn't show you guys with this one how to do it using the unit circle. My apologies. Okay, so if I were using the unit circle, I would just go onto the unit circle and go pi over 3. So at pi over 3, cosine is my x value, so it's 1/2. 1/2. And then 7 pi over 4, I'd go to 7 pi over 4, and sine is my y value, so I'd get my y value, which is negative rad 2 over 2. It's negative rad 2 over 2. And then we'd go through the same process we did there. So this part would be like the part that you wouldn't be doing. Okay, so let's go through 7. I'll start with the unit circle method first, and then I'll do reference angle second. So 10 pi over 3. So if I were to go onto my unit circle and be like, well, where is 10 pi over 3? Well, the highest over 3 one that we have is 5 pi over 3. So what we have to do is first find the coterminal angle. So we have to find the coterminal angle first. This is greater than 2 pi. So first find the coterminal angle. Okay, so we are going to do that by subtracting 2 pi. Now you have to subtract with a common denominator, so that would be subtracting 6 pi over 3 to get 4 pi over 3. So 4 pi over 3, again, I'm going to show you guys the unit circle method first. So the sign of 4 pi over 3, I'd go into my unit circle and find 4 pi over 3, and sign is my y value, so it'd be negative rad 3 over 2. So 4 times negative rad 3 over 2. Okay, and then I would deal with 7 pi over 2. Now 7 pi over 2, if I were to look on the unit circle, again, it's not there. 3 pi over 2 is basically the highest over 2. So we're going to have to, again, find the coterminal angle for this one too. So that statement applies to both of those. So 7 pi over 2 minus 2 pi, so that would be 4 pi over 2, gets me 3 pi over 2. And so 3 pi over 2 is on my unit circle, and we are finding cosine. Remember, cosine is your x value, so it would be 0. So minus 4 times 0. And then I can get my answer. So 4 times 0 is just 0, which really doesn't matter. And then this one I can simplify the 4 and the 2. So I can cross simplify. This would be 2 and this would be 1. And so it would be 2 times negative rad 3, which is just negative 2 rad 3. And then minus 0, which is just negative 2 rad 3. Okay, so now let's go to using the reference angle method. So the reference angle, we look at the denominator for 4 pi over 3. The reference angle here would be 60 because of the 3 in the denominator. And then 4 is 1 more than 3, so that tells me it's going to be in quadrant 3. And in quadrant 3, sine is negative. And then I would draw my special right triangle. So 1, rad 3, and 2. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so negative because of the negative rad 3 over 2, which is what we got from the unit circle. 3 pi over 2 we know is one of our special ones, so no matter what, we have to think about the unit circle with this. So 3 pi over 2 is at this point, which is at 0, negative 1. Cosine is my x value. So we're looking at 0 there. Okay, so reference angle method or unit circle method, whatever you guys want to do is fine with me. Okay, so let's move on to 8. 8, we're looking at 5 pi over 4 and 5 pi over 6. Remember, we square just the final answer when we're done. So it's the same as me saying cosine 5 pi over 4, all of that squared, and secant 5 pi over 6, all of that squared. So I'm just going to do exactly the same. So I'm going to start with my reference angle method. 5 pi over 4, we know the reference angle because the denominator is 4 is 45 degrees. And then 5 is 1 more than the denominator, so we know that's in quadrant 3. Quadrant 3, cosine is negative. So I'm going to just start by putting a negative, and I'm going to square it ultimately. Okay, so then I'm going to draw my special right triangle. And if you guys only want to draw one special right triangle and use that like the whole time, great, do that. Okay, so cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Now, typically I would say rationalize the denominator, but because we're going to ultimately square it, I'm not going to. So negative 1 over rad 2, we don't have to rationalize the denominator when we're going to square it. Okay, so then let's deal with 5 pi over 6. So 5 pi over 6, we know that that reference angle is 30 because of the denominator being 6. And I know 5 is 1 less than the denominator, so that's going to be in quadrant 2. In quadrant 2, secant, which is the reciprocal of cosine, all students, is going to be negative. So I'm going to put another negative there. And then I'm going to draw my special right triangle. One, rad 3, and 2. 30 degrees. So secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. So that's going to be negative 2 over rad 3. Again, we don't have to rationalize the denominator. And then square it. So I'll go through. So negative 1 over rad 2 squared is just going to be 1 over 2. Negative 2 over rad 3 squared is just 4/3. So to add those, we could either add them in our calculator, we could get a common denominator. So if I got a common denominator between 2 and 3, that would be 6. So 3 over 3 here and 2 over 2 multiplied there. So 3/6 plus 8/6, 8, that gets me 11/6. And so that would be my final answer. And now if I were to use the unit circle, the unit circle method would be just a tad different because the denominators are already rationalized there. So cosine of 5 pi over 4, we'd go here, and cosine of 5 pi over 4 is negative rad 2 over 2. So it's the x value. So if I were to do that, why don't we write it here? So that would be negative rad 2 over 2 squared plus, and then secant of 5 pi over 6. So 5 pi over 6 is here. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So I would just flip this. It would be negative 2 over rad 3 squared. And so what would happen is I would get, okay, so this would be 2/4, because negative rad 2 squared is 2 and 2 squared is 4, plus 4 over 3. And then I'd have to get a common denominator. The common denominator between 4 and 3 is 12. Or I could simplify this. I could simplify this to be 1/2, and then I'd be at the same point that I was over here. So whatever method, you still should be getting to the same answer. Okay, let's look at 9. Okay, so negative 6 pi and negative pi over 2. We already know those are negative, so those are definitely not going to be on the unit circle. So I have to find the coterminal angles. So these are both less than 2 pi. So we have to first find the coterminal angle. Okay, so negative 6 pi. I'm going to essentially just add 2 pi until I get something. So that's negative 4 pi. I'm going to add it again because that's still not within the coterminal, or not within 0 to 2 pi. Negative 2 pi. I'd add again, and I finally get 0. Or you could add again and get 2 pi. 2 pi and 0 are at the same spot. So using our unit circle, which we would have to use our unit circle, 0 is here, and it's asking us for cosine. So the cosine is 1. And then cosecant of negative pi over 2, we'd have to still find the coterminal angle there. And so we'd add 2 pi, which would be 4 pi over 2, which would be 3 pi over 2. And then I can use my unit circle. So 3 pi over 2 is here. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, and the reciprocal of negative 1 over 1. If I flip that, 1 over negative 1 is still negative 1. And so 1 minus negative 1, well, what happens? 1 plus 1, we get 2. Now, if I wasn't using the unit circle, I still have to think about the unit circle because I still have to think about those points. 0 is here, and then this point is at 1, 0. And cosine, remember, is looking at our x value. And then 3 pi over 2 is another special point that we have to have memorized. And that point is 0, negative 1. And cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. We're looking at the y value. So it would be, this is negative 1 over 1. So cosecant would be 1 over negative 1, which just equals negative 1. Okay, then let's go to our last one we're going to do on this video. We're going to just finish with number 10. So 2 tangent squared, negative 3 pi over 4, and cosecant 19 pi over 6. Again, those are not between 0 and 2 pi, so we have to first find coterminal angles. See, I wouldn't let you off easy with this one, apparently. Okay, so we're going to start there. So negative 3 pi over 4, we're going to add 2 pi. So I'm going to add 8 pi over 4 to get 5 pi over 4, which is now in the unit circle. And I'm going to start by using my reference angles. So my reference angle here is 45 degrees because of my denominator. And then quadrant, 5 is 1 more than 4, so it's in quadrant 3. And in quadrant 3, all students take tangent is positive. Okay, so I'm going to draw my special right triangle. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So opposite over adjacent is going to be 1 over 1. So it's just going to be 2 times 1 squared. That was easy. And then cosecant 19 pi over 6. So again, we have to find the coterminal angle. So I'm going to subtract, because it's greater than. So I'm going to subtract 12 pi over 6 to get 7 pi over 6, which is now in the unit circle. So 7 pi over 6, we know my reference angle is going to be 30 because of the 6 in the denominator. And 7 is 1 more than 6, so I know that's in quadrant 3. And in quadrant 3, sine is negative because tangent is the only one that's positive in quadrant 3. I'm going to draw my special right triangle. And sine, or it's cosecant. So cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. So 2 over 1. And then we can go from there. And remember, don't forget your sign. I forgot to write it first. Always write your sign. So 1 squared is 1, and then 2 times 1 is 2, plus -2, which gets me 0. Now, if we were to use our unit circle, we'd still have to find our coterminal angles no matter what method. You still have to do that. And then, okay, 5 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4 is here. And then tangent, remember, is y over x. So negative rad 2 over 2 divided by negative rad 2 over 2. It's the same thing divided by itself. So it gets us 1. And then cosecant of 7 pi over 6. 7 pi over 6, the reciprocal of sine. So it would be -2 over 1, which is what we got. And then we still get to 0. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. That's kind of the whole section on using your reference angles or your unit circle. Again, if you guys have any questions about any of these problems, please come to office hours, go take a break, get a snack, do something, and then come back and keep going with the study guide. Hope everyone's doing well. I miss you guys. Same old, but I do miss you guys. So hope everyone's doing well.